if the open source movement does take hold, if people recognize this as being a real serious threat and start applying, just using whatever it is, whether it's Minds or the various open source social media networks, don't you think the government would somehow or another try to regulate that as well if they've already got control over Facebook and Twitter? And
well, that's the threat. So the threat always is that they're going to come in and do that, and that is what they're threatening to do. That there is energy in Washington by people trying to figure out how to regulate or ban open source. Having said that, banning open source, like interfering at that level, carries consequences with it. And so, and there are serious proposals from serious people to do what I'm about to describe. Do you run a software program on everybody's own computer, right? Watching everything that they do, because you have to make sure that they're not running software they're not supposed to be running. Do you have basically an agent built into everybody's chip so that it's not running, software that's not supposed to be running, right? And then what do you do when somebody's running unapproved software? Do you send somebody to their house to take their computer away?
Yes, in as much as I agree with Joe Rogan, but sometimes I see a lot extremely disturbing. I have seen Joe Rogan calling up a lot of Democrats. They even consider these people to be controversial. I came across an article recently published by the New York Post. This is what it says. Joe Rogan keeps turning down Trump's request for podcast interview report. Joe Rogan has turned down numerous requests from Donald Trump's camp to interview the former president on his popular Spotify podcast. According to a report, Rogan has stated he is not a Trump supporter and that he has no desire to give the 45th president a platform, even though a large chunk of the podcaster 11 million listeners to support the Republican frontrunner.
By the way, I'm not a Trump supporter in any way, shape, or form. I've had the opportunity to have him on my show more than once. I've said no every time. I don't want to help him. I'm not interested in helping him.
The night is still young. We'll see.
If I have him on, the night is still young?
Yeah.
You think I'll have him on?
I think you'll have him on.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you think that? Because you'll have Putin on?
And you're competitive as fuck. No. I think ultimately, you've had a lot of people that I think you may otherwise be skeptical. Would I have a good conversation? Which I think is your metric. You don't care about politics, so can I have a good conversation? And I think you had like people like Kanye on, for example, and you had a great conversation with him. I think but
Kanye is an artist. But Kanye doing well or not doing well doesn't change the course of our country.
Yeah, but do you really bear the responsibility of the course of our country based on a conversation?
I think you can revitalize and rehabilitate someone's image in a way that is pretty shocking.
Before we go into this clip, Vivek recently had this interview on Fox News. A question came up about the former president. I want us to take an exclusive look into this before we go into what Joe Rogan recently said. According to an article published by the New York Post, I've seen this going viral with a lot of people coming to criticize Joe Rogan for this decision.
Okay, let's talk about President Trump, because there's been a lot of criticism that you're not taking direct shots at him, that you're not actually running against him. You've talked about that you think that you could possibly pardon him should you have become president. He's potentially facing another round of federal charges in connection with January 6th. Here's some of what you said just a week after that actually happened in real time, one of your tweets. You said, "What Trump did last week was wrong, downright abhorrent, plain and simple." You've referred to the disgraceful Capitol riot and Trump's egregious behavior. In one of your books, you went on to say that he lost, then wrongfully claimed he didn't lose the election, that it was stolen, and then raised millions of dollars off of his supporters. So why are you and the other candidates now so quick to defend him? Are you worried about the punchback you would take for him if you're actually critical of that behavior now?
To the contrary, Shannon, I've been consistent all along that I would have made different judgments than Donald Trump made. That is why I am running in this race for the presidency, the same race that he's in, because I would have made different and I believe better judgments for the country. But a bad judgment is not the same thing as a crime. And when we conflate the two, that sets a dangerous precedent for this country. I don't want to see us become some banana republic.
However, after the two were seen shaking hands during a recent UFC fight in Las Vegas, Trump urged his advisors to explore further avenues for a sit-down, the Daily Beast reported. Joe Rogan was very excited, shaking hands with Trump, and he has praised Trump on a lot of things. When Trump said he can end what is happening in Ukraine in a single day, Joe Rogan did a segment and I saw how he's actually praising him. So I don't understand. If you are not a fan of someone, it doesn't mean you cannot platform that person. It is crazy, I don't see this to be okay. It is not logical. There are a lot of people that are even banned, Democrat, like this man running for president. He has been banned in many platforms, but Joe Rogan could sit down with them on interviews. He's a presidential candidate. I know maybe if Ron DeSantis decide to sit down with him, he will accept. Going down on the article, one of Trump's informal advisor, Roger Stone, has reportedly offered to engage Rogan in a UFC-style cage match in hopes of forcing the podcaster to interview the former president. According to the news site, the more discussions of Donald Trump on a blockbuster podcast like Joe Rogan builds a remarkable audience, a Trump advisor told the Daily Beast. Perhaps the only person bigger in the new media will be Joe Rogan is Donald Trump, and the whole idea that the two of them will be together at long last. It will be an incredible audience. Trump recently appeared on the Full Send podcast, whose YouTube page counts more than 2 million subscribers. The Full Send interview with Trump generated millions of views, though the YouTube video of it was removed by parent company Alphabet because the former president repeated his claim about the 2020 election, which YouTube recently announced. You can now say that on its platform. That time, a lot of people were deplatformed for saying this happened in 2020. I myself, I was a victim of that. Rogan, who has forced his own criticisms for spouting conspiracy, has said in the past he has no desire to endorse Trump. I'm not a Trump supporter in a way, shape, or form. Rogan told podcaster Lex Ferdinand last year, I have had the opportunity to have him on my show more than once. I have said no every time. I don't want to have him. I'm not interested in having him. On his own podcast last year, Rogan referred to Trump as a man baby while speculating that the current Republican frontrunner may be using Adderall. Joe Rogan said he has turned down multiple offers to have Donald Trump on his podcast. I don't want him. I'm not interested in having him. Nonetheless, Trump isn't taking the snub to heed, according to the Daily Beast.